Howdy, y'all, and welcome to American Friction, the only US politics podcast in the world. Prove me wrong. And I'm the only Jacob Jarvis in the world.
Yeah, you are. You are. And I'm Chris Jones, one of many, but still unique and definitely not a Russian spy.
Duh. And joining us today is the world's favourite, the number one, the numero uno, Nikki McCann Ramirez. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, boys.
Always
Hello.
a pleasure to have you here, Nikki. And on this show, is Elon Musk biting off more than he can chew at the moment? Is he starting to hit some roadblocks or DOGE blocks, if you like?
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Plus, we'll wrap up the news you might have missed, but probably haven't, like the bearded belly dancers in that weird AI dystopian depiction of a future of Gaza, should the US president take it over.
But before that, Chris, it's that time of the week. Let's get silly. Give us a question then.
Well, Trump was accused of being a former Russian spy, or still a Russian spy, I can't quite remember, but he was accused by a former KGB agent. So my question to you guys is, what's the best spy film?
So I couldn't really think of any spy films. Obviously, James Bond. I've never watched a James Bond, and I don't think I will.
No, what?
Yeah, don't really like them. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, that's just and it's a hill I'll die on.
Why?
Because my granddad used to just make me sit and watch them along with F1 on like Sundays, and it just
How dare he
yeah,
want
just
to
like-
spend time
it
with
was
you?
Either, no, because that's the thing. He didn't. It was like, hang out with grandma, and then now it's like, if you want to hang out with granddad, you can go into the living room and watch Zulu. Or
What did you say there?
you can watch Zulu,
Oh, right,
or
yeah.
a James Bond film, or you can watch the F1. So yeah, not big on it. So then I thought Spy Kids, but I don't actually like that much. But then I thought of a classic of the genre actually, Vin Diesel's Triple X. It's got Rammstein at the beginning of it.
Du hast?
Yeah, exactly, which
Nice.
is really good. And yeah, he's like an extreme sports star turned spy. I think it's really good. A lot of people disagree, but I enjoy it.
I cried the first time I saw Spy Kids.
Really?
Do you want to know why?
Because you want to be a spy kid?
Absolutely. No, I went with my grandparents to the IMAX in Manchester. First time I'd ever been to an IMAX. And at the start, they used to say, the sound of 1,000 radios. And to little old Chris, that was fucking terrifying. So I just burst out into tears, not thinking that I was probably going to die.
Yeah,
Didn't.
yeah.
Good film, Spy Kids.
It's very loud.
Not the
that.
second one, though.
1,000 radios is very loud.
It is.
Nikki, what about you?
I mean, the thing is, spy films are not my favorite movie genre. It's like just never really been my thing. Like I've seen some of the newer James Bonds. If I had to say like the spy film that I have watched the most is like the Austin Powers franchise.
Oh,
Love Austin
good.
Powers.
Yes, very
Yeah.
good shout. I love that.
It's more of I'd say it's more of a parody.
But it's still a spy
It's
film.
still,
It's a spy film.
checks out.
Yeah.
Checks out. Well, Chris, without any further ado.
I am going to say Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Okay.
Brilliant film.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Gary Oldman.
Yeah,
I
great.
think Mark Strong's in it as well.
I've been told I
lots
look
of
like
people.
a young Gary Oldman.
By who?
By who?
People. Everyone.
My mum.
Yeah,
People that
my
don't
mum,
exist.
yeah.
Anyway,
Thanks, man.
welcome back. You are listening to American Friction.
You are. Before we begin then, a reminder that we all are collectively on Patreon, and we really need your direct support to help us to keep the show going. For £3 a month, you'll get the show ad-free, and other tiers get you access to bonus content and merchandise, and the merchandise is very cool.
It is very cool. And now for our £5 and above tiers, we have a Patreon chat community, which is going pretty well.
Yeah.
People are joining in and chatting. And you can join it as well. If you want to join that tier, you can speak to us and each other directly, suggest talking points for the show. And we'll also give you a peek behind the scenes when it comes to what we're thinking of discussing week to week.
Yeah, we're very open. We're
We
open
are.
books. Ask us anything. It doesn't have to be about politics even, but I imagine that's what you're most interested in. But anyway, follow the link in the show notes or go to patreon.com/American Friction to sign up. That link again is patreon.com/American Friction to sign up. Nikki,
Yes?
Elon Musk has had a bit of a week, hasn't he? This email that he sent out, talk me through it, and is it one of the dumbest things he's ever done? And he's done a lot of dumb stuff.
I mean, I think it was pretty dumb. I think it was pretty reckless. He overplayed his hand, definitely, is what we're seeing from it. This is a tactic he used at Twitter, where when he first bought the platform, he would like email engineers and be like, send me 5 lines of code that you wrote last week, or you're fired. Like that kind of thing. Things that aren't necessarily super representative of what people do, but the email basically said, give me a list of 5 accomplishments in the last week. Failure to respond to this email will be considered like a resignation or a termination. I forget the exact wording. But he sent this email out to over 2 million federal employees.
Big email.
They sent it on a weekend, which also doesn't like give people a ton of time to respond, doesn't give administrators in their departments or agencies or chain of command time to clarify. Some people work with classified or highly sensitive job roles that don't necessarily allow them to write, hey, this is what I did this week on an email that's not going to a secure server. So what essentially ended up happening is that a bunch of agencies and like federal departments instructed their employees not to respond. And Elon Musk made a whole big deal about it, like, these people can't even do the bare minimum, responding to him in email, like they don't deserve their jobs if this is something that they're doing. Elon Musk won't respond to the emails from the mothers of his children.
Yeah.
Or the text, or the phone call, or the court orders. So, I'm sorry, first of all, you have no standing. But second of all, it's as if you work in a company, and that company has a CEO, the president, let's say, and a board of directors, Congress, let's say, and some friend of the CEO just emails everyone in the staff saying, reply to my email or you're fired. Like, how are you as an employee supposed to treat that? It's like, you're not my boss. You don't pay my salary. You're not going through the appropriate chain of command. I don't necessarily have to respond to you until I get guidance from my boss.
It also plays into that really weird kind of frontier, always growing mindset too, of like, what constitutes maybe achievements, I suppose, as well, or accomplishments, because not every job, you kind of don't want every job in government to be like doing new things every single week, I suppose, do you? Like some of them kind of, you need a bit of like, some of it's just processing stuff. And maybe so that means, you do things that are quite essential, but you're not going to do new things every single week as well. So it's quite a hard email to reply to in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, members of the Park Service, for example, where they fired a ton of people and now they're having a ton of problems at U.S. national parks because people who were in charge of like ticketing and like general administrative stuff have been fired and now there's really long lines and reservations are getting canceled. Like if you're a park ranger, you might do kind of the same thing every day.
Yeah.
You might show up, you might unlock the bathrooms, you might, help direct people onto which trail will get them to what location. Every once in a while, you might participate in a rescue if some idiot gets himself, like, lost in the woods or some shit. But your day might be pretty monotonous. But even that monotony is important to the overall running of, say, a federal park.
Yeah.
There are people who all they do every day is review grants and make recommendations and make budgets. And the other thing here is this email went out to 2 million employees. And he was like, oh, you have to respond by Monday. And the first question people had was, who's reviewing these responses? It turned out they were just going to run them through AI software to decide who got to keep their jobs. Like, I'm sorry, there are laws governing employment of federal employees. You can't just fire people like that. And of course, a bunch of employees did file a lawsuit challenging the email and the directive. And the Trump administration ended up pulling that back. But Musk is already saying he's going to do it again as soon as he gets a chance.
Okay, cool. Well, seems like it's been very well thought through there. Chris, the other thing about this was there was like the email that you could respond to was made public as well, wasn't it? The email address. So they got quite a lot of spam, as you'd imagine. Some from actual employees, some I imagine from people like you and me could have emailed that email address if we'd wanted to. Maybe you did, I'm not sure. What were some of the examples of the spam that they received?
They were largely the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I've got a couple of examples. So someone simply replied, didn't do ketamine, didn't ignore my children's mother, didn't golf, didn't wield a chainsaw.
Okay.
And then someone fleshed it out a little bit more and said, number one, making sure everybody knows that you're an unelected immigrant Nazi bureaucrat. Number 2, calling Republicans and asking them to speak out against you because nobody fucking elected you, Nazi.
Okay.
Number 3, posting about you being a Nazi across all my socials. Number 4, appeared on 3 podcasts to talk about you being a Nazi. And number 5, I cleaned my cat's litter boxes, which reminded me that you're a humongous piece of shit Nazi. Nikki, was that you? Did you write this one?
What? No, I never clean the litter boxes. That's Jake's job.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
fair
But
enough.
loads of examples like that.
Yeah. Well, Nikki, as well. So Trump said that the email as well, apparently part of the master plan was it would catch out people that don't actually exist in these jobs as well. I'm not really sure how that tactic would, how you know someone not replying means they don't exist or not. That's a whole sort of thought experiment there. But are there loads of federal employees who don't exist?
No.
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 Thank you. Thanks for clearing that up.
You don't exist, Jarv.
Oof. That's a thought experiment there.
It's a similar tactic they've been taking to justify cuts for a lot of other things. They've been saying the same thing about Social Security. These cuts to Social Security are just going to target people who are either died 50 years ago and are still receiving benefits, which is not true, or receiving benefits that they're not entitled to. Same thing for Medicaid. Mike Johnson said yesterday that, Medicaid is, for people who actually deserve it, not these people who are just taking advantage of the system. In terms of these federal employees, the Trump administration, to justify these mass arbitrary firings, they've been saying a ton of stuff, but one of the things they're saying is, these are people who work 2 or 3 hours a week and don't really contribute anything, or they don't exist at all, which is not necessary. It's not true. I live in DC. I know people who are losing their job, friends of mine who have been furloughed, who, are kind of just waiting for the axe to fall because they know that cuts are coming to their workplace. And these are good people who don't make an insane salary, who have families and their own lives to support, and they're just sitting there waiting to be fired because some unelected bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. decided that they don't deserve their jobs.
He as well as obviously winding up a lot of real people with real, quite normal, ordinary jobs. The cabinet are getting quite pissed off with Musk as well. What's going on with the tensions there?
Yeah, it's a bit of a delicate line. The thing here is that you basically have Musk acting as an unconfirmed cabinet member whose authority somehow supersedes every one of the secretaries' control over their own agencies. And they don't like that. They don't like that. You have to remember that every single one of these people took this job because they were interested in power. RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth. None of these people agreed to go through the Senate confirmation, to sit through the public grilling, the explorations of their finances, because they wanted some other guy to come in and say, actually, I have the authority here, not you. I run your agency and I decide what happens to it, not you. And the other thing is that everyone in Republican politics has seen past members of Trump's cabinet, past Trump appointees, leaders of federal agencies, become the fall guys when shit hits the fan. They've seen these people get railroaded, and they don't want to be the ones holding the pot when the shit hits the fan. There is a lot of financial entanglement between Elon Musk and Trump. The question here is also, can Trump afford to cut off Elon Musk if people start getting really mad? If it starts looking like 2018 where, constituents are really angry at Republicans and they might lose the midterms, well, whose head is going to be on the chopping block when the administration has to make a show of accountability because shit hit the fan? None of the cabinet members want it to be them. So I think, for the initial weeks of the Trump administration, there was no cabinet. You had these sort of agencies that existed with no leadership that came from the Trump administration. All the cabinet appointees were going through the Senate confirmation process. Musk was just put into an office and told, go forth, chop away. Now the cabinet is complete. They had their first meeting on Wednesday. And the answer my email or you're fired stunt clearly received some pushback from these cabinet members and major agencies who said, wait. I'm in charge of my people, not you. I'll take it under advisement, but we saw the Department of Defense, the FBI, the State Department, the ONDI, all issue emails to staff being like, you do not report to these people, you report to your chain of command, do not answer this email, or like, you don't have to answer this email. Sure. Some of it was because of national security concerns, but among that, like, Department of Defense, that's Pete Hegseth. The FBI, that's Kash Patel. These are people who are loyal to Trump. They don't necessarily have to be loyal to Elon, and I don't think any of them is going to be willing to shoot themselves in the foot to help protect Elon.
And when you're a really highly qualified person such as Pete Hegseth as well, you must just find it really patronizing to have someone like Elon Musk come in and wade in. The first cabinet meeting then, how did that go? Because the vibes looked quite strange in the room to me.
Yeah, and this is where it gets a little silly, because as much as any cabinet member, and to be clear, the vast majority of these cabinet members broadly support what Elon is doing. What they want is a semblance of control over the process.
Yeah, so I know Trump said that they have a lot of respect for Elon and that he's doing this, and some disagree a little bit, but I'll tell you, for the most part, I think everyone's not only happy, they're thrilled. And if they aren't, I want them to speak up. But then there was a really weird moment, which, considering it's on camera, it clearly, I don't know how he would expect people to respond, but someone asked Trump whether any cabinet members had expressed dissatisfaction with Musk, and then he turned to the room to ask them, and basically everyone stayed quiet. And I sort of think, well, yeah, I don't know if they're gonna sort of put their hands up on TV.
It's the man with the gun asking a room of people, hey, if you want to get shot, raise your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
No one wants to be the first person to stand up and say publicly, hey, this guy's out of control. Because you might take a dig at Elon, but fundamentally, it would be standing up and saying, I don't like what President Trump is doing, because President Trump is endorsing this. He's facilitating all this. He's on board with all of this. And the only thing that is more important to these people than preserving, because Elon Musk is, at the end of the day, in charge of a project that the Republican Party has been trying to execute for a really long time. He's doing it sloppily. He's doing it in illegal ways. It's going to become a problem. The way he's doing it is going to have disastrous downstream effects, the way we talked about last week, on the economy, on a bunch of other stuff.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it is the Republican mission. The only thing that's more important to them than that mission is their public perceived loyalty to Donald Trump, making sure they stay in his good graces and act like good little soldiers. So until Trump is publicly bearish on Elon, no one is going to stick their neck out publicly.
Is another weird thing there, I suppose, then as well, though, too, that like they basically they don't disagree with Elon ideologically. So if they were to pull him up, it'd have to be on sort of function and the way he's doing the job. And clearly, seen as they're all going to be so incompetent, is there a little bit of self-preservation there as well? Because you sort of think, well, I can't have a go at this guy for being shitty at his job, when I'm sure I'm going to do my job in a way that's pretty shitty as well.
Yeah. No, definitely. And you're also trying to play a waiting game.
Yeah.
When things collapse and they have to decide who's going to take the fall for this, everyone wants it to be Elon. Elon also isn't being discreet. He's putting his name on this entire project. He's owning it. He's, I am the Doge master. I am become meme, blah, blah, blah. When the retrospect... Okay. Blah, blah, blah is a normal one?
No, I was laughing at I am become meme. That's what I was laughing at.
Well, you didn't see that one?
Cringe.
At like CPAC, he's like, I am become meme. And
I saw it. It's just the worst.
It's the worst. It's the worst.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the more he owns it, when people look back and they have to decide who's taking the fall, every cabinet member wants it to be Elon.
Yeah. As quite a meme connoisseur, me and Chris share a lot of memes between us. That's another thing that I just have to dislike about Elon Musk, is just that how's he still stuck in fucking like Icon has cheeseburger era memes? Like, just update
cringy,
your memes,
He's fully on like 9gag shit.
Yeah. He's just gotta get with the times a little bit more. Chris, so people are quitting Doge as well. So that's one way to save like money, isn't it? But then as well, a huge load of jobs DOGE is cutting. They're just basically making like absolutely no savings, are they?
Yeah. And anyone can go and look at these figures. In fact, if you go to doge.gov/savings, you can go and see all of the list of terminations that DOGE has reported to have made and the savings that those terminations have reported to have made. And it's updated twice a week. And on the updated list on Monday, according to the Associated Press, a third of the terminations made so far have made no savings. So that's 794 out of nearly 2,300 terminations that have made zero savings whatsoever. Charles Teifer, who's a retired University of Baltimore law professor, told AP that is essentially like confiscating ammunition from a gun after it's been fired.
Okay.
There's literally doesn't make a difference, and there's no point. It's just to appear busy, I guess, and to make a point that they are making terminations and trying to up the numbers, I guess. Amongst some of the biggest cuts on this listing is to the Department of Homeland Security, and that was for administrative management. And in just 2 contracts, it claims to have cut $1 billion. There's loads of examples like this, but there's also a lot of things that need to be questioned from the data that's in there. For example, there's this grant of over $21 million that had apparently been made from USAID to help with voter turnout in India. And this is something that Trump has parroted quite a lot and has just gone out and said this over and over again, saying that why were we paying this amount of money to help with turnout in India? And Narendra Modi as well has basically said that this is part of a massive conspiracy against his party. Well, it doesn't seem like that grant actually exists anywhere. USAID said that it doesn't exist. And then the Indian Express reported that actually that grant didn't go to India at all, but instead to Bangladesh. Now, there's some, I guess, chat about whether it actually did go to Bangladesh. But the point being is that a lot of these figures, or some of these figures at least, seem to be not correct.
50 million in condoms to Gaza.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been reported as fact. And that's very problematic.
Nikki, on the sort of the things that have been harmed here, just going back to that cabinet meeting briefly, can we touch on Elon Musk talking about Ebola and how he just basically made out like that was just a bit of a mistake in the office one day?
The other thing that he did at this cabinet meeting was he was the first person to speak before any other of the cabinet members.
Yeah.
Like Trump had him stand up, address everyone, and then he kind of sat in the corner, which was kind of funny.
Made this little tech support joke again as well, didn't he?
God.
Yeah, he loves wearing a t-shirt under a blazer and then opening up that blazer like a Subway pervert.
It's just not funny.
It's awful.
Yeah, it was quite like David Brent-esque, the sort of tech support gag. It just it didn't work.
So he's talking to the cabinet members and he goes, "We will make mistakes. We won't be perfect, but when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly."
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola prevention. So we restored Ebola prevention immediately and there was no interruption. Yeah, just no big deal. We just canceled Ebola prevention.
Yeah, just for a little bit.
And I'm going to get into experts who actually worked with a USAID on Ebola prevention saying that it has not been restored. There was a big report from the New York Times today about that. But this was one that they caught. How many other programs have just been axed? Yeah. And no one's been like, hey, this is important. We need this. Malaria prevention, voting rights shit, healthcare for women, those kinds of things. Yeah. And it's not just USAID, it's also domestic agencies. All the cuts that took place at the FAA, where they fired people whose job it was to prevent pilots who have been caught drunk driving from having a license to fly.
Yeah.
Those kinds of people are also getting fired at a domestic level. And so Ebola, the New York Times released a big report today where they spoke to current and former USAID officials who said that, quote, Musk was wrong. USAID's Ebola prevention efforts have been largely halted since Musk and his DOGE allies moved last month to gut the Global Assistance Agency and freeze its outgoing payments. The teams and contractors that would be deployed to fight an Ebola outbreak have been dismantled, they added. While the Trump administration issued a waiver to allow USAID to respond to an Ebola outbreak in Uganda last month, partner organizations were not promptly paid for their work, and USAID's own efforts were sharply curtailed compared to past efforts to fight Ebola outbreaks.
Okay.
So it's like, oh yeah, we fixed it. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Like you're not only lying because they had to have known, but also they just don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. In their minds, these are people on another continent, on the other side of the world, who they don't really give a shit about, and they think the United States should have no business dealing with. But, you know, it's kind of easy to forget at this point. But what year was it that there was the major Ebola outbreak that ended up being cases in the United States?
The other thing being as well is it just shows how they think about everything as if it's a spreadsheet sort of thing, and like that, you know, a very temporary pause in these things. Like, yeah, sure, maybe it means like 0.05% or something like that of an increase, but when that's real human beings, it can still be a pretty fucked number of people to be affected in this way.
It's the most tech bro approach. To government management, to the management of a human population, of a society. It is people who spend all fucking day looking at little numbers on a computer, writing their little no disrespect to tech people. My brother works in tech. I love him to death. But, like, if you're not out there doing the work on the ground and talking to the people, well, yeah, you can just delete a bunch of lines on the budget. Oh, I saved a ton of money. You also put a bunch of people's lives at risk.
So think about that, nerds.
Yeah.
Nikki, who actually, though, then, we're speaking about Elon Musk a lot, but who actually is in charge of DOGE then? Because it kind of has come out that even Musk isn't really in charge of DOGE.
I mean, in effect, in IRL real world practicality, it's Elon Musk.
Okay.
Legally, on paper, for various reasons, it would be very inconvenient for the Trump administration if Musk was the on-paper administrator of DOGE.
Okay.
This is because fully fledged federal employees are subject to reviews. They're subject to a bunch of ethics disclosures. There are divestment requirements for certain positions. Background checks, all those kinds of things that you have to go through to be a federal employee. Musk, he's exempt from a lot of them right now because he's what's considered a special government employee, which is basically just a temp. He's a temporary hire who gets to skip a bunch of the typically standard onboarding processes, is exempt from a lot of the standard ethics disclosures. So for weeks now, the White House has been in like this weird limbo where they just wouldn't say who the official administrator of DOGE was. Because DOGE, I think we talked about it on a previous episode, it was this office called the United States Digital Service, which was started under Obama. It was intended to like upgrade the use of technology by the White House, particularly when they launched healthcare.gov. It's worked on a bunch of other tech projects for the federal government. They basically took that office and renamed it DOGE. And that office had a bunch of existing employees, a ton of which got fired, some of which are resigning this week now under DOGE. But people kept asking the White House, the Trump administration, who is in charge of DOGE? And they'd be like, oh, it's not Elon Musk. They said that in a lawsuit. The judge asked them directly who the administrator of DOGE was, and they said it's not Elon Musk. So then obviously the question becomes, who is it? And everyone was like, okay, if it's not Elon, who is it? And Caroline Leavitt was like, I'm not going to name an individual from this podium. We've been super transparent. It's like, you're being transparent, but you won't say who the head of this omnipotent, weird-ass agency you pulled out of your ass is. And then it came out on Wednesday that it's a woman named Amy Gleason, who is an Obama appointee, who worked in the United States Digital Service between 2018 and 2021 and worked on like healthcare tech policy development under Obama. Now, here's the thing. This is just a name. We don't know the particulars of this woman's job. We don't know when she was named head of DOGE. We don't know if she actually has any authority in the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, because clearly the man in charge is Elon Musk. So it also kind of feels like this is a person they just inserted again, pulled out of their ass and said, oh, this is our administrator. But what job are they actually doing? You're talking all this shit about transparency and and how faceless federal bureaucrats are running the government. It is the most hypocritical thing in the world to have the White House go through multiple press conferences where they refuse to name the unelected bureaucrat that is running the agency, firing thousands of federal employees.
And according to the New York Times as well, she was scheduled to be on vacation in Mexico.
Oh, she was in Mexico.
And
yeah.
told associates that she didn't know that the White House were going to make her role public. So really weird to sort of say they were going to protect her in that way and then just be like, oh, no, now we're just going to say what we like. Chris, Elon Musk, you get the sense that maybe a lot of people don't like him. But what's the polling telling us about that?
It's mixed.
Okay. Yeah.
Believe it or not. Yeah. So Qantas asked 1,000 registered voters, what is your opinion of Elon Musk's efforts in collaboration with President Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE?
DOGE.
49% approved, 45% did not. And then Pew Research did some more polling on Musk's popularity and found that 67% of adults under 30 hold an unfavorable view of Musk, compared with about half of those aged 30 to 49, which is 53%, and those 50 and older, 49%. Overall, that leads to a 54% disapproval rating from Americans. But as I say, it's about half and half.
Okay. Nikki, with Trump, so like a couple of times we've mentioned how he sort of seems to mock Musk a little bit and clearly seems to, I don't know, he doesn't seem like he totally likes the guy. Why is he protecting him at the moment? And is this situation increasing the tension between Trump and Musk? And is there going to be a point where Trump, you think, will ditch him? Is that basically if he fears that, the unpopularity might rub off on him?
Definitely. I think it's already being felt, not necessarily by Trump and the cabinet members, but amongst elected members of Congress. Over the weekend, last week really, and over the weekend, a bunch of Republican representatives and Democrats, but a bunch of Republican representatives were back in their home districts to do like constituent work, like town halls, meetings with voters, that kind of thing. And they were getting reamed out over what DOGE is doing. Especially, there was one like really, really tense town hall in Virginia where a ton of federal workers are employed who are now losing their jobs. Basically, it was voters telling lawmakers, why the hell have you abandoned your constitutional powers and let this man run rampant over what is essentially your role in the government, deciding the federal budget? And the Republican leadership, which I wrote about in Rolling Stone, responded by essentially being like, you should just stop hosting town halls because it looks bad. Okay. And I think what's happening here is, like I said earlier in the show, there's going to be a fall guy. Like, this is not something you can do without consequences. And we're already seeing sort of the embers of a major voter backlash because people are going to feel the effects. You're firing thousands and thousands of people. Like, you're affecting millions and millions of people's jobs and livelihoods and ability to exist in an already difficult society to live in by cutting all these programs, by cutting all this funding. You're going to see the backlash. And someone's going to get their head chopped off. And so I think it's also like a matter of timing. Musk, really convenient because they were able to insert him in this period of time where he didn't have to deal with agency heads because they were all getting confirmed. It gave Trump a really good, look what I'm doing, like month one, promises fulfilled. The longer this goes on, the less payout he's going to get from Musk. And I think at a certain point, we said it, like, I think right before the election, we were like speculating about how long this relationship could last. I don't think it lasts the 4 years. I don't think it lasts till like the end of the year, really, because I think the blow up is coming.
little bit of news for everyone then. We're going straight into our roundup section and our listener questions this week because we're now releasing our interview segments on Mondays. So this Monday just gone, we spoke to former Alabama Senator Doug Jones, and it was a very nice chat, good conversation. So go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But basically, we felt like we were squeezing our chats a little bit. We don't want to do that. We want to give it room to breathe and to hang out, just as free friends, as BFFFFs as we are. So yeah, we just want to squeeze everything in.
But we still want to talk to the best and leading experts on all kinds of things. So coming up on Monday, I speak to a former policy advisor for Obama and current author, Carrie Shute-Peltz, on Native American identity and the struggles that hundreds of Native American tribes have with the federal government. So watch out for that.
Yeah, and it's a very enlightening listen. I've already listened to it. So
lucky you.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't gotten to listen to it. What the fuck?
Well, I was on it.
Yeah, he was on it. You're not on a high enough Patreon tier, Nikki. And a reminder to all you listeners, if you want us to keep doing all of these interviews and stuff, patreon.com/American Friction. You can go and support us there. There's a link in the show notes. That's a nice plug.
I'm going to start sending subscriber exclusive pictures of Yoda.
Yeah, nice. That would be good. Yeah, I can do
Only
that for
cats.
the dog too.
Only meows.
Only meows.
I hate myself.
Right, Nikki, on something else that we can all hate, talk me through this AI video that Donald Trump shared on Truth Social.
Yeah, it was incredibly grotesque.
Yes.
So, as people know, for more than a year now, Gaza has been absolutely ravaged by a devastating war against Israel that has obliterated the region, killed tens of thousands, displaced millions, and left uncounted numbers of people buried under rubble. There is currently a very fragile ceasefire, and Trump, for weeks now, has been entertaining the question, what does one do about Gaza? And, you know, normal human reaction is you honor the two-state solution that has been pursued for decades at this point. You help rebuild the area, help the families that have been displaced resettled. You don't embrace ethnic cleansing. But Trump has been fantasizing quite openly about taking over the area and rebuilding it as a Riviera of the Middle East. And on, I think, really late Tuesday night, like minutes before midnight, he published an AI-generated video on Truth Social where he imagined the Gaza Strip being turned into a glitzy, Dubai-esque Trump Gaza resort.
Yeah.
It was really gross. It had images of Trump and Netanyahu lounging shirtless on a beach with drinks in their hands, Elon Musk dancing while money rained around him, images of vaguely Middle Eastern children walking around holding golden balloons in the shape of Trump's face, a giant golden statue of Trump in the middle of a plaza. It's grotesque. Grotesque is the only word I have for it.
Yeah.
I think it's the kind of thing that the Palestinian people have feared for decades and decades. You know, they have slowly been losing territory to Israeli settlements, to the illegal Israeli occupation. Gaza has been referred to as the largest open air prison in the world. You know, people who are subject to apartheid, miserable conditions, who for generations now have been afraid that one day there would be an incursion that resulted in the outright elimination of their presence in the territory. And that was what Trump was imagining in this video. Because the type of billionaire playground that the Trump Gaza video presented wasn't one for the people who live in Gaza, the people who have been struggling with poverty, with a lack of access to resources. It was a playground for the wealthy and the influential, for the Elon Musks of the world. Trump's personal Dubai is what it looked like. And it was nauseating. It was really gross. And again, I think it confirms a lot of the fears that people had about what would be done with Gaza when this war broke out, and now that it's kind of reached a very fragile détente.
Yeah. Well, like the lyrics that were generated for this as well is Donald's coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump's Gaza's finally here. Trump Gaza's shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. But that on the brand new life thing, I think really chimes with, as you're saying, of like, but the brand new life that he's suggesting for people in Gaza is that they are going to be placed
elsewhere
in an as yet unknown country if a country agrees to do that. So it's just, it's really, really sickening.
He openly said a couple weeks ago that the whole region should just be cleared out. And I think he said Egypt.
Yeah.
And I think
Jordan,
Egypt and Jordan should just be incentivized to accept all the refugees.
The fact that AI is used for any political message, I think is so fucking low. Yeah. It's so low, and I think it's just because it's easy. Like anyone can really go and do it now. You just type into an AI system what you want, and it churns it out. Relatively, it looks janky and a bit weird.
Yeah.
But anyone can go and do it, and that's exactly what we seem to be seeing with this AI video. That just no one really with much expertise has put in something to an AI model, and this is the outcome, and it is terrifying.
Yeah, I think like that. Using words like terrifying means really. I'm glad we even those sort of words, because I saw so many headlines that said it was like bizarre and stuff like that. And the thing is, like, when Trump said he's going to do things, so far he does do them, or he at least attempts to do them, or he pushes it through. So it kind of just feels it's quite willfully ignorant to just be like, oh, look at this silly video Trump's done. Isn't that crazy? And it's like, well, no, he does the things he said he's going to do.
And also, it takes it out of real life in a way which it shouldn't do. We shouldn't forget, as Nikki has pointed out, the horrendous situation in Gaza at the moment, and how this weird dystopian future that Trump seems to envisage for it, that's not realistic, and it almost pushes it past the problem that we still have at the moment of how do we solve the issues that are going on. Trump, in posting this video, is almost saying to the world, I've got it figured out, and no one has it figured out, and we shouldn't forget how serious and how complicated this situation is.
Yeah. Nikki, Trump just kind of, as we're seeing here, he wants to run everything like one of his tacky businesses and do these sort of weird Trump-esque business ideas. And let's also remember, he wasn't actually that successful a businessman. He lost quite a lot of money, and when lots of his projects failed. But what is this immigration gold card scheme which he's suggesting?
Republicans and Democrats, but Republicans more vociferously, love to make hay about the national debt. And Trump has come up with a fun and flirty plan to pay down the national debt. He's gonna let rich people pay $5 million for American residency. So a gold card, essentially. You pay $5 million. You get to skip the massive immigration line and automatically get your American residency, which you only need to hold, I think it's like a minimum of 5 years to get your citizenship. Now, when Trump and Elon announced this, they were pulling out these insane numbers about how quickly they were going to be able to pay off the national debt if, X million amount of people paid for the gold card.
I've got this from a tweet, which I can't say I've sort of double verified myself, but sort of suggesting that Trump is saying if we sell 10 million gold card visas for $5 million, that's $50 trillion. But essentially, this person is suggesting there are only approximately 2 million people outside the US who have a net worth of over $5 million. So it's pretty much they're just there. Even if every single person who had this much money in the world wanted to do it, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, and also, like, who are you letting in? Like, there's plenty of narcos in Mexico who have millions and millions of dollars. What's the vetting process like?
Yeah.
Russian oligarchs? Because when they announced this, one of the questions was like, oh, will you, like, block certain people from certain nationalities or who have, like, criminal affiliations from buying this gold card? And it was really clear that they had no idea how they were going to enforce this or how they were really going to vet people to make sure that that money wasn't coming from some like super shady place. So, and to also be clear, there are like investment visas in the US. There are programs that like if you invest a certain amount of money, you can like get your visa or like get shit expedited. But this is a really like kind of pay for play scheme. And it's also, again, like I it almost doesn't feel worth saying it at this point, but also just like the rank hypocrisy.
Yeah.
You know, you're terrorizing people saying that like immigrants are just coming to this country to influence it, destroy the culture, to ruin everything, that the people who want to come to this country should do it the right and legal way. And then at the same time, you're just giving rich people a fast pass. Yeah. Like, yeah, every immigrant who crosses the border, if they had enough money to just buy a green card, they would probably do it. The number one barrier for people who cross the border as undocumented immigrants to going through the quote-unquote correct legal process is the financial burden, because it costs a ton of money to become a resident in the United States. So, you know, it really fucking grinds my gears.
It's essentially, you know, they've said they want, as you've pointed out there, they want the right people the right immigrants to come in. And essentially what they mean is we want the rich people to come in.
Lifestyles of the rich and the famous.
Yeah. Oh, Good Charlotte,
nice. Man. That's good.
I love Good Charlotte. Good band.
Good Charlotte.
But yeah, I tried to have my hair like one of the members of Good Charlotte when I was younger.
It really surprised me at all.
Didn't work out for me. Probably because, you know, I was 10 and he was a really famous celebrity. But so not going to check out. But yeah, anyway, let's get on to some of the listener questions we've got this week. So this one is one from Matt GS. Nikki, I'm going to put this one to you. So this was a big old question.
It was beautiful.
That we got in our community chat, which you can be a member of if you join up on our Patreon for the £5 and above tiers. So yeah, go to patreon.com/American Friction for that. But Matt GS asked, great first interview episode with Doug Jones. Thank you. But it only strengthens my concerns that the Democrats are using political norms as guardrails against someone who is breaking all those political norms. Trump already owns the Supreme Court and now has people who are either loyal to him or scared of retribution all the way up the chain. At which point, saying Trump has always adhered to court orders or that he requires 60% majority for new legislation means nothing if he can just go and do it anyway. People are actually dying and have died in countries where US aid has been withdrawn without any plan or notice. People have been fired at all levels of government and it feels like nobody can stand in his way. Can he just enact laws and get the Supreme Court to endorse them? Can he just access federal funds without congressional approval? And if so, then why play by the rules? So, Nikki, big old question. So, yeah, why play by the rules?
I will say I was a little frustrated in the Jones interview. I feel he had some excellent points. It was lovely talking to him, but I do feel it was very exemplary in some instances of the criticisms that a lot of Democratic voters are leveling against the party. This idea that, you know, institutions that are under attack, have been under attack, are just going to hold because we believe in them. Like, no, you have to bring the fight you have to bring the fight. You can't just constantly be on defense. And it's sort of the situation that Matt GS was referencing in his post, and I think we touched on it a little bit when we talked about Ebola. This idea that, you know, Congress is the one that decides the budget for federal agencies like USAID. Congress is the one that approves the spending. And Democrats need to be raising havoc about the fact that Trump and Elon Musk are undermining their constitutional authority. The budget negotiations are coming up. They're gonna have to vote on the next round of funding in the coming months. And if they need to shut down the government to get accountability for Musk, at this point, I say do it. You're bringing the government to the brink of a shutdown every 3 months. Like, it sucks. But federal employees are already under attack. Federal employees are already suffering job losses, being furloughed, insecurity. If you manage to put a freeze on the government and force Republicans to come to the negotiation table and gain concessions, say if you want to have Elon Musk in this position of power, he needs to go through XYZ channels. We need to do QRS, I don't know. But this attitude that Democrats have that, you know, just believing in institutions is going to be what saves those institutions is false. It's faulty. You have to be willing to bend the rules when you need to, because Republicans don't give a shit about the rules. It's abundantly clear. It's like, you know, what's the meme? Like, oh my God, a dog isn't allowed to play basketball while fucking Air Bud puts up 30 points. You know?
Yeah.
Like, you have to find your balls.
Is one thing maybe in terms of the institutions, is the court of public opinion going to become one of the guardrails, I suppose, that the Democrats can use? Because Doug is saying sort of his suggestion was they need to get out and start litigating these things in public, like not just in town halls, going to these red districts and sort of showing how...
Which I agree with.
How fucked
fully.
all of this is. Yeah. Absolutely. But do you think that maybe on the guardrail side is that we always think of the guardrails as being like Washington infrastructure itself, but is one of the guardrails actually the people realizing that like the power being used is the power vested by them? So maybe is that some sort of hopeful guardrail that's something the Democrats can do sort of away from Washington?
Definitely. But the thing that Democrats also need to realize, and I think you kind of heard it in my last question to Doug, which is what I was trying to get at, is that a lot of Democrats do agree with at least some of the criticisms leveled by Republicans about the U.S. government. We agree that bureaucracy is bloated, that it's not effectively serving the people, that healthcare sucks, that economic policy favors the rich over the working class, that childcare is unaffordable. Like, there's a lot of populist messaging that Republicans have somehow become really good at capitalizing on, despite never delivering on their promises, that Democrats, for fear of being called leftists, for fear of being called socialist, keep running these asinine establishment candidates who are so focused on towing the line and not pissing off Republicans that they do not actually message towards what Democratic voters, independent voters, actually want and desire from their government officials.
Nikki, you need to run with that punching of the table there. That was spoken like a Democratic candidate.
You'd be... I can't run. I've said too many things online.
You'd be like...
Yeah.
You'd be a libertarian candidate, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah,
Nikki McCann Ramirez, certified libertarian.
Checks out. So thank you very much for that question, Matt GS. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. No, wait, I got to tell Matt, I owed him a response because I took several days and was just like too busy.
Sorry, Matt, but it was a really big question. You know, it was a big one. If you do little ones,
like those,
even me,
though. I like those.
They are nice, but me and Chris can even respond to the Diddy ones. But the big uns, we're going to get the big guns in.
The big uns.
No,
it's like that.
So a question from Dan James here. I'm assuming the Leeds winger.
Yeah, Leeds winger.
Leeds
Nice,
winger, former Man United winger. Keep on running, Dan. He was just really fast.
That's it.
And they're not really very good at anything. But Dan,
football chat.
Actual Dan James. If you're not that one, let us know if you are good at football, because we could get some sort of American Friction 5-a-side on the go or something. I don't know.
Desperate for that.
But I really am. But anyway, this is a question from Dan James. Maybe a professional footballer. If you are a professional footballer, really up that fucking Patreon donation. After everything that's happened, what do you think it will take for a public uprising in the US? And do you think Trump will make it to the end of his term due to either his age, but also just generally being mad and lots of people wanting to remove him? Nikki, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
There are potential legal ramifications involved in me speculating on the latter part of that question.
Okay. Do you want us to take it because we're safe and in London?
Yeah, you take it because you're safe in England.
So I think there could be sort of mass public unrest in the US based upon what is happening. My concern being is that I feel like any crackdown from a Trump administration or people that Trump is commanding would be so heavy-handed that it would really quash things at probably quite an early level. I think it's like, and I can see why as well, even if there is this desire for uprising across the US. Like, look, we saw in his last term, like the way he dealt with protests and stuff like that. And last term Trump compared to this Trump seems somewhat tame. So the way he would want to crack down and the sort of things that were blocking him there. So that is what scares me. I don't think it's a write-off, but I just feel like for those sort of things to grow and have the impact and spread, I don't know. So I'm not sure.
I mean, between like Kristi Noem and Pete Hegseth, any sort of popular movement like on the streets would be labeled a riot and stamped out
they
immediately.
Would just,
or they would try, but
yeah, it would just be instant, National Guard, everyone's out there. It would just, they would be so fucking heavy-handed. Do I think Trump will make it to the end of his term? I do.
Yeah.
And I think he'll try for another one. The guy just won't fucking die. And he's like, he's like a cockroach. And also, I just don't feel like there's enough pushback there. And we're not seeing, particularly within his own party. And then we've spoke about, Chris, you know more on the poll numbers than me. It's your thing. But like, it's just, there's no fucking base. Like, whatever he does, there is a cement level of foundational support there, which I don't know what he can do which would break that down. And that just gives him such a mass of support.
The thing is, I don't necessarily think that the backlash will be against like him specifically. Of course, there's always like Democratic, some level of independent backlash against Trump. Like you said, there's like this hard floor within his support amongst Republicans. I think we might be gearing up towards like a 2018 U.S. midterm situation where like the backlash against the Republican Party was like insane. And I think it might be worse this time around because you're really seeing actions that people can feel, like the mass firings, the economic consequences of them, the March jobs. It's some economist I was reading the other day, I think it was saying that like the April jobs report is probably going to be abysmal. You're already seeing Republicans get pushback, like congressional Republicans get pushback at town hall events where they're face to face with their constituents. So, if Trump made a massive promise to voters, he said, you're going to be winning so much. You're going to get tired of winning. You're going to be better economically than you ever have been. Your neighborhoods are going to be safer. Like everything's going to be great. People are already feeling the squeeze. They're already feeling the potential economic pain. They're already like prices aren't going down. We talked about eggs last week. But the more people feel like they are the ones suffering the brunt of Trump's policy agenda, the more that backlash is going to present itself when the 2026 midterms come around.
Well, just coming back to the numbers, as you mentioned there, we had award-winning pollster and journalist Peter Kellner on Oh God, What Now, one of our other podcasts recently. And he, on his Substack, he figured out each president's rating after 1 month going back to 1945. And Trump is the only president who's had a negative net rating of approval since 1945. Everyone else is basically plus 20. With Biden is the lowest number with plus 20 after his first month. In 2017, Trump was minus 11, and in 2025 so far, Trump is minus 6. That source is from Gallup. But that just shows that there's already discomfort with having Trump in the White House from a lot of American voters.
On the dying factor as well is like. So the average US lifespan is around sort of 78 years old or so, I believe. But looking at a piece here from New York Magazine, and so we have to consider is billionaires live a lot longer than that generally. So in 2022 to 23, the billionaires who died had an average lifespan of almost 86 years. So you think Trump's a billionaire, he's already got really good healthcare on that side of things and all of that. And he's the president. He's getting very regular checkups on that side of things. I know it's easy to think, well, he's already above the average age of death in the USA, but I don't think that necessarily applies to someone in his position. So I'm not necessarily convinced that that is a likelihood. So yeah, Dan James, that is my answer. And Nikki, I hope you're safe legally on your answer there. And Chris, thank you for your thoughts. Here is a final question. This is a light one. David Bunce, thank you very much for a fun question, David Bunce. So as we record, Keir Starmer, our man, Prime Minister.
Our man Prime Minister.
Man Prime Minister. Little salute.
Very good.
But our man is in Washington there. So the question is, if the team were to pick out the perfect gift for Starmer to take to Washington and woo slash flatter Trump, what would it be? Chris?
Bondi Sands.
What's Bondi Sands then?
Oh, that's self-tanning. Self-tanning stuff. I'm told. I'm told.
Okay, so just a nice self-tanner.
He's looking a bit patchy, isn't he? He's looking a bit patchy around the face. And also, my partner, Lauren, she's getting a second mention on the pod. She said that he needs to match it all with his body because it's just very face-heavy at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough. Well,
I think that would work.
There's some theory that he gets more orange the more stressed he is. You see that?
Oh, no.
I haven't seen that, but it doesn't surprise me.
It's the whole thing. Nikki, what gift should... our man Prime Minister be taking?
Oh no!
Probably like a super sour warhead, like the
super
candy.
sour.
What?
Yeah, like
sweet.
the candy.
Oh, I don't know what this is.
I feel like one of those
warhead.
would kill a Brit.
No, you've seen some of the food we eat.
No, but that would be a present from Trump to Starmer, though.
Oh,
do you
from
think?
me?
No. So like, what do you? No, but we're saying what should Starmer give Trump?
Oh.
Not that way around.
There you go.
Oh, what should Starmer? I don't know. What?
So I've got a thought here. I would like him to take Donald Trump a pair of Reebok Clubsies. I think that Trump's trainers are always quite bad, and he launched them like gold trainers, and they sucked, and it just annoys me. So I'd be like, Don, you're into sports. Here's some nice standard trainers for you, and just give him that. Just so I don't have to just see his...
Does Trump wear trainers?
He must occasionally, but I think like give him a relaxed look. Like I would get him... I've got a friend...
So you're trying to improve his... I guess
know.
I am as well,
Kind
actually.
of, but I've got a friend who never wears comfy clothes, and it really frustrates me. So for his birthday, if you're listening, I'm buying him a tracksuit.
Why, you've ruined his birthday now,
Yeah,
haven't you?
he doesn't listen.
Oh.
Good friends. So anyway, that'd be my thing. Just get him some comfies of some variety. That's always my favourite gift. So trainers and a tracksuit. That's basically what I want Keir Starmer to buy me. And listeners, I'll give you a free Patreon if you send me that. I can make that happen. Nikki, gift. What do you think?
A packet of those like gag golf balls that like shriek when you hit them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's Simon. What about you?
Yeah, what do you think, Simon?
I don't think you should give him anything at all. Fuck that guy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Simon is correct.
Very good,
Nice.
Simon.
Very good,
Nice.
Simon. Unlike this libertarian Nikki, who's like sympathetically giving gifts to Trump.
And
I
listening
know,
to
it's
Good
me.
Charlotte.
Yeah. Oh. That's such a
Nice.
good tune.
Yeah.
Anyway, right. Those questions were asked by our new Patreon community chat, which you will have access to if you sign up to our £5 and above tier. And yeah, just I want to say you're all great. Every one of you is in that chat. If you join that chat, you'll also be great. And we very much appreciate it. It also gets you bonus content. And as I say, we're in there chatting. Come have a chat with us. So the link in the show notes, or go to patreon.com/American Friction to sign up. And that brings us to the end of this episode of American Friction. Nikki, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chris, Jarv, Simon.
Chris Jarv.
Chris Jarv's back again.
Chris.
Would you rather be Jarv Chris?
I think Chris Jarv has a ring to
Yeah,
it.
There
Chris
we
Jarv
go.
works better. I hate to say it.
Then stop complaining.
Yeah, Chris Jarv.
Thanks, Jarv Chris.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Simon Jarv Chris. Chris Jarv Simon.
Thank you kindly. I'm thinking maybe I should get a ropey AI video of me saying thank you. Next time I'll be solid gold.
Yeah,
Oh, hell
pull
yeah.
it in.
I love it.
So with that brings us to the end of the show. A quick reminder, if you can't back us on Patreon for whatever reason, we totally get that. But if you enjoy what we're doing, please do rate and review us wherever you're listening to the show. You've been listening to American Friction. Make sure you keep listening forever because, like a billionaire, I intend to live forever. Yes, there can only be one.
I
Goodbye.
want to live forever.